Hi everyone, my name is Ava Mercer. I'm 30 years old. My parents threw me out at 15, disappeared for the next 15 years, and then showed up in black clothes at my uncle's while reading, whispering about what they deserved. And by the time my mother smiled at the lawyer opening the file, I had already decided they were not going to hear his last wishes before they heard mine. But the real beginning was not the will reading. It was my suitcase on the porch. One cracked blue suitcase with a broken zipper, a trash bag full of clothes, and my father standing in the doorway like he had already made peace with the version of himself who could do that to a child and still sleep that night. My mother did not even come outside. She stood behind the screen door in her house slippers and said, "Maybe this will teach you gratitude." I was 15. I had not stolen anything. I had not run away. I had not set the house on fire or emptied a bank account or done any of the dramatic things people like my parents later implied when they told the story their way. My crime was simpler and apparently worse. I had told a school counselor I did not want to go home. That was it. Not even because of bruises, though there had been those sometimes. Not because of one catastrophic event. Because by 15, I had learned the shape of the place I lived in and knew if I did not name it somewhere out loud, I was going to disappear inside it. My father drank and made rules that changed by the hour. My mother translated his moods into instructions and punishments. Gratitude, respect, obedience, family loyalty. Those words got used so often in that house they started to sound like locks. The counselor called home. My father called me a traitor. My mother said I had humiliated them. By 6 that evening, my suitcase was on the porch. The only person who came for me was my Uncle Raymond, not my mother's brother, my father's older half-brother, which mattered in our family because bloodlines were treated like arguments whenever it was convenient. Uncle Raymond had money, no children, and a reputation for being cold, which in our family usually meant he didn't like liars and didn't perform affection for people who hadn't earned it. He pulled his car up to the curb just after sunset. Didn't honk, didn't shout, just got out, picked up my suitcase himself and said, "You coming?" I remember nodding because I couldn't speak. He drove me to his house in silence. Not cruel silence, safe silence. The kind that leaves room for your nervous system to realize no one is about to start screaming. When we got there, he took me inside, pointed to the guest room at the end of the hall, and said, "You can stay here as long as you tell me the truth." No one in my family had ever offered me truth as a condition for shelter. Only obedience, only silence, only strategy. That was the first night in 15 years that I slept without listening. 4 footsteps. Uncle Raymond never tried to replace my parents in the sentimental movie scene way people imagine when they hear a story like this. He did something rarer and in the long run more valuable. He was consistent. He got me enrolled in a new school district, found a therapist without announcing it like a moral achievement, put my name on the mailbox after 3 months as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. When I turned 16, he taught me how to read a bank statement. At 17, he showed me how to change a tire and file taxes. At 18, he sat across from me at the kitchen table and said, "Nobody gets to own your future because they fed you while you were small." I still think about that sentence, especially now because for 15 years after he took me in, my parents never called. Not on birthdays, not when I graduated high school, not when I finished college, not when I got engaged and then didn't because that's another story. And life keeps happening even when old wounds want to stay center stage. Nothing. No postcards, no apologies, no we were young, no, we were wrong. Not even one pathetic attempt at holiday outreach so they could later claim they'd tried. If people ask whether that hurt, the answer is yes, but not forever in the same way. Eventually, neglect stops feeling sharp and starts feeling structural, like a wall you've lived beside long enough to stop reaching toward. Then Uncle Raymond died in March. Massive stroke, quick, brutal, unfair. He was 68 and still healthier than most men 20 years younger. One day, he was arguing with a contractor about gutter drainage and making fun of my inability to parallel park. 2 days later, I was standing in a funeral home, choosing between tie colors for a man who had done more parenting in quiet Tuesday mornings than my actual parents ever did in 15 years of blood relation. The will reading was scheduled for the following Thursday. I did not expect my parents to come. Not really, which is why the sound of my mother's voice in the hallway outside the conference room turned my entire body cold before I had even stood up. I knew her voice instantly, that syrupy church basement softness that always meant poison was trying to pass as concern. When I stepped into the hall, there they were, my father in a black suit that fit him too well for a man pretending grief. My mother in pearl earrings and a long dark coat, one hand resting on his arm like they were arriving to claim condolences instead of assets. And both of them looking around my dead uncle's lawyer's office with the alert, measuring attention of people already dividing rooms in their heads. My mother saw me first. For half a second, she looked surprised. Then she smiled. Not warm, not guilty, not shaken. The smile of a woman who had just remembered something she believed still belonged to her. My mother saw me first. For half a second, she looked surprised. Then she smiled. Not warm, not guilty, not shaken. The smile of a woman who had just remembered something she believed still belonged to her. Ava, she said like we had spoken last week. Oh my goodness. I did not move toward her. My father gave me one slow look from shoes to face. The way men like him look at daughters they have not earned but still feel entitled to assess. You look well. That was his opening line. Not I'm sorry. Not you were a child. Not 15 years is too long. Just you look well. I said you weren't invited. My mother's face did a little performance of hurt. Now. Sweetheart. I almost laughed. Sweetheart. 15 years of silence. And she came back with sweetheart in a lawyer's hallway where my uncle's estate was about to be opened. My father stepped in before she could overdo it. Raymond was my brother. He took me in after you threw me out. A pause, not because they felt shame, because I had said the sentence too plainly for them to soften it right away. My mother lowered her voice, glancing toward the conference room like the walls themselves might be judging her. We all made mistakes. There it was. The first attempt to turn my childhood into a group project. I kept my voice level. No, you made decisions. She looked at me for one beat too long, and I saw the calculation start. Which version of me had survived? The wounded one, the angry one, the beautiful one who could still be managed with enough soft language and a public setting. Apparently, she chose wrong. We came to pay respects, she said. My father added, and to hear the reading. That one was cleaner, more honest. I appreciated him for it the same way you appreciate a knife for not pretending to be a spoon. Before I could answer, Mr. Donnell opened the conference room door. He was Raymond's attorney. Tall, spare, white hair, quiet voice. He had known me since I was 16, which meant he knew exactly who my parents were without needing a briefing. His eyes moved from me to them and did not change. Mrs. Mercer, Mr. Mercer, he said, I did not expect you. My mother stepped forward with that polished sadness she used at funerals and church lobbies. Family should be present. Donnell nodded once, the kind of nod that is not agreement, so much as acknowledgement that a sound has been made. I see. Then he looked at me. We're ready whenever you are. Not them. Me. That mattered. The conference room was too cold. The kind of cold offices use when they want paper to feel more important than people. A long walnut table, water glasses, 2 folders, 1 sealed envelope. I noticed the envelope before I noticed anything else because Uncle Raymond had once told me that if a lawyer leaves one thing sealed in a room full of paper, it is either very bad or very deliberate. My parents sat across from me without asking where they should be. Of course they did. My mother folded her hands like a widow in a play. My father leaned back as if he had every right in the world to be comfortable there. He even wore the expression I remembered from my childhood whenever he thought a room would eventually return to his authority. Mr. Donnell sat at the head of the table. He opened the first folder and began with the usual language. Formalities, date of death, statement of capacity, general estate overview. My mother listened the way hungry people pretend to be patient. My father was worse. He was doing math in his face. Raymond had done well for himself. 3 rental properties, investments, the house, nothing obscene, but enough that people who had ignored him in life suddenly found him emotionally meaningful in death. I knew what my parents had told themselves on the drive there. That blood would matter again when money entered the room. That Raymond might have kept things fair. That 15 lost years could be financially reorganized by a dead man's sense of duty. Then Donnell started naming specific bequests, a scholarship fund, a donation to the county library, a cash gift to his groundskeeper, his watch to an old friend from the fire department. My mother's smile thinned slightly. My father shifted once. No one said my parents' names. Not once. Finally, my mother interrupted. Excuse me. We just want to understand the family portion. Donnell looked at her over his glasses. I'm getting there. She sat back, but the room had changed. The confidence was leaking out of them in tiny lovely ways. Then Donnell reached the house. The residence and all attached improvements, he read together with associated investment accounts listed in Schedule C, pass in full to Ava Mercer. My mother made a sound. Not a word, just a sound. My father leaned forward so fast the chair leg scraped. Donnell kept reading. No life estate for them. No family split. No moral language about blood. Just my name clearly repeatedly in the kind of legal phrasing that does not care who feels entitled. When he finished that section, the room went completely silent. Then my father said, "There has to be some mistake." Donnell closed the folder. "No," he said. "There isn't." My mother turned to me then, and I watched something ugly crawl up through the grief costume she had been wearing all morning. "You manipulated him." It was almost impressive how fast she got there. Not how could Raymond have felt this way. Not what did we miss. Just the oldest family logic in the world. If the wrong daughter ends up protected, she must have schemed for it. I looked at her and said nothing. Because inside the sealed envelope at the center of the table, my eyes kept going back to it, my stomach tightening every time. I already knew there was more. And by the way, Mr. Donnell rested one hand lightly on top of it before meeting my gaze. I knew Uncle Raymond had one final thing to say before anyone in that room got to rewrite him, too. Donnell rested his hand on the sealed envelope for 1 second before opening it. "This," he said, "is a personal letter Mr. Mercer instructed me to read only if Daniel and Renee Mercer appeared at the reading or attempted to challenge the disposition." My parents both went still. That was the first real crack, not because they felt guilt, because they suddenly understood Uncle Raymond had expected them. Expected is a dangerous word when you've spent 15 years pretending absence erased memory. Donnell unfolded the letter and began. "My brother and his wife may appear after my death with grief on their faces and numbers in their heads. If they do, read this aloud." My mother's face drained immediately. My father said, "This is unnecessary." Donnell did not even glance up. He kept reading. Raymond wrote that when I was 15, I arrived at his house with one cracked blue suitcase, a trash bag of clothes, and eyes so swollen I could barely look at him. He wrote that no parent who loved a child would leave her on a porch to learn gratitude from the cold. He wrote that over the next 15 years, neither of them called often enough to claim confusion, repentance, or misfortune. He wrote that absence was also a decision, especially when repeated on birthdays, graduations, holidays, and every ordinary Tuesday where love could have chosen to be inconvenient. Then Donnell reached the line that changed the air in the room. "I am leaving Ava everything, not because she persuaded me, but because she never once asked. She earned my trust the old-fashioned way by being there after the people who created her made themselves irrelevant." My mother started crying, not delicately. Real wrecked, ugly crying. I would have felt more if I had not spent half my life waiting for tears that came only after consequences. My father went red first, then gray around the mouth. He had no right. Donnell finally looked up. He had every right. Then he read the last paragraph. "If Daniel or Renee speak of what they deserve, remind them that inheritance is not back pay for neglected parenthood. If they speak of family, remind them that family was 15 years of silence. And if they accuse Ava of turning me against them, tell them the truth." I was there the night they did it themselves. No one moved for several seconds after that. My mother had both hands over her face. My father looked like a man realizing too late that blood alone had never been the lover he thought it was. And me, I felt strangely calm, not triumphant, not healed, just clear. Because Uncle Raymond had done what he always did. He had taken the thing everyone else wanted to treat emotionally and pinned it down with language so exact nobody could slip out from under it. My father stood first. "Fine," he said, "if that's how he wanted to punish us." "Stop," I said. That surprised all of us a little. I had barely spoken the whole reading. But if he was going to leave that room telling himself he had been punished instead of exposed, I was not going to let him carry that cleaner version home. "This was not punishment," I said. "It was a choice. The same way leaving me was a choice. The same way not calling was a choice. The same way showing up today with an appetite was a choice." My mother looked up at me with mascara blurred under both eyes. "We were young." I laughed once. No joy in it. Just disbelief. "You were my parents." That landed harder than the letter had because the law can tell people what they lose. Sometimes only a simple sentence tells them what they were. My father tried one last turn. "So that's it. You just take everything and walk away." "No," I said, "you walked away 15 years ago. This is just the first time you had to watch a door close from the other side." We left the office in silence. Not together. They went first. My mother still crying. My father already hardening around the edges again because some people will choose anger over shame if you leave them enough time in a hallway. I stayed back to sign the preliminary papers. Donnell handed me the keys to Raymond's house in a small envelope. When he placed them in my palm, he said he was proud of you every day. That almost broke me more than the reading did. Not because I doubted it, because hearing it out loud after spending years surviving without it was almost too much kindness at once. The fallout was not explosive. That would have been easier. It was slower. My parents tried to contest the will for exactly 11 days, right up until Donnell's office sent them copies of the letter, Raymond's competency certifications, and 3 separate witness statements confirming he had discussed his intentions clearly and repeatedly. After that, the challenge evaporated. My mother sent me 6 letters in 4 months. The first 4 were about fairness. The 5th was about regret. The 6th was only 2 lines long. I should have come outside that night. I know that now. I kept that one. My father sent nothing worth keeping. As for the money, the house, the accounts, people always want that part to be the true ending. But the real inheritance was not the portfolio. It was the fact that for 15 years I had lived in a home where kindness was not rationed, where doors did not become threats, and where being loved did not require pretending the past was smaller than it was. I kept Raymond's house, repaired the porch light, left the guest room exactly the way it had looked the first night he let me stay, except I replaced the mattress and painted the walls. Every now and then I stand in that doorway and think about the girl with the cracked blue suitcase and the man who did not ask whether I deserved help before offering it. That was the wealth. Everything else was paperwork. Hi everyone. Thank you for being here. If that had happened to you, would you have let your parents sit through the entire reading or stop them the second they walked in talking about what they deserved? And if the people who abandoned you came back only when money entered the room, would you ever call that family again? Tell me in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to see you in the next one.